Many of us in this world find ourselves searching for ways to feel more alive. We move through our lives day after day, living through the same repetitive cycles and the same stressful patterns that often leave us feeling defeated, underappreciated, or unfulfilled. But what if there were a different way to perceive life? What if out there we were able to find the keys to a happy, healthy, and fulfilling reality right here, right now? For those of us who are looking for a way to transform our lives, for those of us who want to learn how to fully live in this moment, to change how we feel, how we perceive the world, and awaken to a better reality so we can fully live this life. This is the Live This Life podcast. I'm your host, Heath Cummings. I'm here to inspire you to ask yourself the question, are you living or are you killing time? What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Live This Life podcast. You gotta forgive me if I sound a little bit under the weather today, a little bit of the sniffles and sore throat. Winter's coming early here in the Northeast, lucky us. So, trying to get some content put out. I've got a big trip coming up next week, so I'm going to be away from home, trying to get a few episodes recorded before that trip, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. This episode that I'm going to do today was inspired by many conversations that I've had with people lately about growth and going through periods of growth. It seems like a lot of people are on a path of growth right now through either their professional endeavors or things that they're doing or creating. So I've been inspired in this episode to talk about growth, how that comes up in our lives. Right now, I feel like in my own life, this is a series, like a period of exponential growth for me in many different ways. One of the biggest things that I've seen in my own growth lately is I've been on this like manifesting wave lately. Manifesting things in my life has been on a whole other level, something I've never seen before. If you're not familiar with what manifestation is, it's basically, something showing up in your life, the evidence of something like an event or an action or something tangible showing up in your life that is the result of some sort of a thought or intent or energy that you have in your life. Sometimes we manifest things that we don't necessarily want to manifest. But in this case, I'm manifesting a lot of things I'd like to see in my life. And I'll get into what manifestation and law of attraction is in a very near future episode. It's definitely something I have on tap coming up in the next few weeks because it's a subject that I'm very, very fascinated with and feel like I was taught a formula recently, obviously a very good formula or recipe that I'm using and it's working. Within the last year, I've manifested my way out of a career path that I didn't want anymore. I didn't want anything to do with it. And I manifested a higher paying job. I got out of that career path. I'm making more money now than I ever have. I manifested a political win, a political job and win. I manifested a trip to hang out with one of my biggest mentors for an entire week in LA next week. And I have two jobs right now currently bidding back and forth for me right now, kind of tugging at me. And one's offering more pay and more vacation time, and the other one's offering different benefits. Like I'm not even looking for a job right now, and I have literally the one that I have and another one kind of tugging at me. So, I'm definitely on the right track to something. And it's almost like it's too much right now for me to even keep track of. So obviously there's something of this recipe that I'm doing right. I'm trying to figure out the exact means behind what I'm doing so that I can share it with you all. But it's amazing, and it's a crazy series of events that have happened in my life recently. And the people that I've learned this from have told me that this is exactly what was going to happen if I followed certain pieces of this recipe. Certain results were going to come, and I followed it and studied it to a T, and now here I am, and they were absolutely right. Everything's coming almost too fast. Now, one important thing that I wanted to mention before I dive deep into the rest of the information that I have for today is that I kind of see myself as an average guy. So when I talk about these kinds of things that I'm manifesting, I mean, yeah, the whole job thing is great. The changing career paths is great, but a lot of the people that I'm learning from, they are mega earners, and I know that monetary success is not the barometer. Actually, it shouldn't be, and more oftentimes than not, it is. But it really shouldn't be the barometer of success in our life. A lot of the richest people in the world are absolutely miserable. I mean, I listened to Elon Musk say something the other day about how he hasn't had a vacation in years. In like 12 years, he's taken a couple weeks and they were all disasters. So he never takes time off. He doesn't go home to take a shower often. So yes, he's one of the most rich and outwardly successful people that I can think of. But I definitely don't envy his life. Now, I don't live in a huge house. I have a decent job, but it's nothing like a CEO, and I have a comfortable life, but there's a lot of things, a lot more travel, a lot more financial abundance that I'm hoping to call into my life in the very near future. But on the flip side to that average Joe statement, I've definitely been someone someone pointed out to me lately that I'm one of those types of people that's been able to actually manifest a lot of good or bad things at different times in my life. From my relationship with my wife, to my jobs that I've had, to the hardships that I've had against administrations, to the cancers that I had, all of them possibly came as quick manifestations of my own thoughts and actions. And some of these things were examples of growth through insight and enjoyment, and others were growth through pain. And that's often how we grow. It's one of those two different polarities, one of those two dualities. It's either growth through your insight and enjoyment, or it's done through significant amounts of pain. But what's crazy is if you look back on your life, I bet you can trace back the steps to some of the most enjoyable times in your life. I bet that you can trace back and see how you brought some of those pieces of the most enjoyable times of your life, how you brought those to yourself. And most of the time, the same thing can be said about the bad time. Your trials or triumphs will probably somehow show you some way that they came to you through your own actions and thoughts. When it comes to manifestation, we're all capable of this stuff, and I'm convinced of that. This and maybe even greater things, which is actually a phrase that reminds me of something that I heard when I was doing some of my religious studies and investigations and spirituality. I believe Jesus said that we can do greater things than he even did. I've always wondered what that meant, and maybe this is part of the path. I guess I've manifested and accomplished things in life way before I knew any of this stuff, really. I mean, I guess you could say I manifested a lot of these things by default. I mean, they came about, and there were certain things that I wanted, and I got them through certain actions that I took. But it was all done by default. I didn't realize that there was this sort of recipe that's out there of bringing these things to you in some way, shape, or form. So many of us do this on a daily basis by our words and our actions, and we don't even realize it. I mean, I can think of certain female friends of ours who always say, I just attract all the a-holes, when it comes to men. Or someone actually that I know that plays the lottery a lot. And when they don't win or something bad happens, like their car breaks down or washing machine, the same person says all the time, that's just my luck. Well, of course, that's going to be your luck if that's what you believe. These comments speak things into existence. These things are coming from and originating in a thought form, and they're being spoken into this reality, your reality. And the end result of those words is a mindset that some people want to say that the words are reactions to circumstances in a person's life. Like you say, it's your luck after you have bad luck, but what if that's backwards? What if you tell a certain story? Like, what if it's not just cause and effect? It's not just you have bad luck, so then that's your observation and then you speak it. What if you're reinforcing that every time you speak it? What if every time you say, that's just my luck, then that's exactly what you are manifesting into your life? If you tell a certain story and your mind believes it, what else would you expect? I mean, if you have this this latent ability, this ability to manifest things and bring them into your life by default that we all have just been doing all along before we realize this recipe is out there. What if you actually put your conscious beliefs into it, that you can bring these things around, instead of putting your conscious belief in a doubtful way, like, oh, that's just my luck? Why not believe it in another way? Why not believe in luck, or that you're worthy of wealth and love? I mean, how will you ever be able to make the small and subtle moves that get you in the right places at the right times and make your dreams come true if you don't observe the little nudges that are supposed to put you in that direction? If you believe that you have bad luck, you will have it. If you believe in something different, then you're going to follow that. Those are the observations you're going to make. What if you start today, if you're one of those people who always tells a story of bad luck, what if today you just started telling a different story? What if you started making the observations about your life, about how it's unfolding the way you want it to, so that you can bring about the things that you desire? What if you did all that, then all of a sudden those things started to show up? You can have growth in your life on intention and insight rather than through pain. In this episode, I wanted to talk to everyone about what kind of things we do to continue our path of growth and expansion. We should all be striving for a path of growth from the moment that we're born until the moment that we die. We should always be continually trying to learn things. I mean, that's why we're here. I learned a lot through pain, unfortunately. In my adult life, I've learned a lot through pain. And after the pain set in and I had to continually and forcefully manifest my way out of that pain so that I didn't stay there, that was where my growth, I obviously didn't want to stay in those places of pain, so that as a result, I took action to get myself out of it. And that's where the growth came from. It was the pain that drew me down and contracted me so much that my expansion came from when I tried to get out of that pain. And I learned that life's insight and the positivity that I had once I was at my darkest moments, that was where I manifested a better life from. And it's that new manifested effort after that contraction that came from the pain, which is where the growth actually came from. And yes, the pain was a catalyst to those thoughts and actions. But what if that's not necessary? What if you can get your mindset to be in that expansive state before or in absence of any pain? You don't need to go through those things to have the good, insightful growth. What if we can inflict that pleasant, intentful growth period anytime we desire? I think that happiness sometimes escapes us because deep down, we're all creators, and many of us don't get the opportunity to create things in our lives. We're just too busy. We're too busy just living. We're trying to react to life. We're trying to work multiple jobs to pay the bills and get our kids all over the place. We're just making it through each day in a struggle. So who has time to create anything nowadays? I mean, really. But I feel like the universe put us all here for a specific reason, and that was to create in some way, shape, or form. And there's a myriad of ways that we can create. It can be in a mainstream art form like painting or music or even podcasting. I mean, this is a creative art form for me. It can be creating a home for your children. I mean, I've heard women who stay at home with their kids feeling like they haven't accomplished anything in their life, and they're down about it. They don't make the money. They don't have titles. They don't have different career accolades that they have to show off. They just have this home. Like, I've heard this from people. But that's one of the most amazing things you could create. I remember when I was at home between jobs at one point in my life, and I was able to be the one who was home and cooking meals and making a nice home for our family. It was actually really rewarding. But I think that's one of the most amazing things that you could create. It's just that not enough men or women who stay at home are appreciated or appreciate their worth in what they create in that form, in that art form. And your art form could be maybe going out in the public to save people's lives. I mean, that could be your passion. That could be what you use as your canvas. It comes in so many different ways. It's impossible to list them all out. But our interest in so many different forms can come and go over the years. Our interests can change as we evolve as people. My interests now are far different from what they were even 5 years ago. But I know one thing, that if I don't have something going on where I'm actively creating something, whether it's been landscaping designs on the houses I've been working on, or buildings that I've owned, rebuilding departments, or coaching people, whether it's been football or boxing or life coaching, if I don't feel like I have something that I can work on to try and finish and reach a goal and accomplish, then I have this empty feeling inside. And that can lead to feelings of depression and being down and feeling worthless. And I know a lot of people who feel that way. So what kinds of things in this world can we do to keep us engaged? Things that can keep us feeling like we're moving forward towards some sort of goal. The things that make us feel like we have a purpose in life. It's different for everybody. If you're listening to this, then you obviously have a passion for self-improvement and trying to find some sort of a higher purpose, and you're trying to find answers toward living a more fulfilling life, maybe. As for me, I'm someone who has recently found what many people are looking for, which is why I'm here now trying to teach what I've recently learned, because my recipe's fresh in my mind, or at least I'm still developing this recipe. And now that I've made such a major shift in my life, and I can seem to look at situations or frustrating circumstances or aggravating people and not let them create the same reactions in me as they once did, I get more out of those situations because of what I've learned. And additionally, I get more out of life because of what I've learned. Pain is unfortunately one of those ways that we grow. Like I said, when we go through the pain, we tend to shrink. We tend to go inward and contract. We withdraw for protection. And it's only when that initial pain is over that we start to rebound and grow. But what if we could initiate that growth period without the pain? What if we could enter Satori, or what's known as the growth through intent, and do it in a positive way rather than Kensho, which is the growth through pain. There's Satori, which is the good growth, and Kensho, which is the growth through pain. And so many of us grow through Kensho. It's almost like our default programming. Leaving the previous career path that I was on in law enforcement was hard enough. It was a very hard task to do. I felt like I was just kind of floating out there in space. And many people that inspired me to do what I did were on such far ends of the spectrum from where I had been in my life. I mean, I was, the typical clean-cut kind of square cop type who would never think of befriending and being part of circles of very sort of hippie spiritual types of people. I mean, for 18 years of my life, I was someone who lived a very straight edge life, and I cared so much about my outward appearance, and because of that, I was sort of ingrained to only hang out with certain types of people, and that certain types of people that were outside of the normal culture that I was with. You weren't allowed to hang out with people outside of your groups out of fear of ridicule or not being accepted. And the people that I'm making connections with now are the types of people who are super spiritual. I mean, they go to music festivals and they have experiences that are way different than anything I've ever experienced. They have some awesome life stories and some tales of crazy times that I don't have. They've lived very sort of open and unstructured lives. And me being somewhat of a beginner in discovering some of these broader truths about people and our reality and spirituality, I listened to them with such amazement, and now here I am trying to teach it to people, and it's a bit intimidating. I felt at certain times that I wasn't skilled enough to do these kinds of things. That who I was being sort of I was inexperienced to really go out there and try and teach this kind of stuff to people. But I realized shortly after making some of these connections that they're not a judgmental group of people, and they were actually very encouraging. I was used to being around a lot of judgmental people for so long, and I would think that the other side of the coin would maybe be as judgmental as what I was used to. Maybe they looked at me and said, there's no way that we could be friends with someone who's the cop type. But from what I found, that perspective was flawed, and they thought the same thing of the other side of the coin. Someone from my background would never think of associating with people of that sort of a hippie background, and people who were just a lot less structured. They had the same misconceptions that I did, and I was encouraged to use my story And the understanding that I was developing through my investigations of all this stuff, of how to expand myself, they encouraged me to get out there and tell my story, that I had influencing type of personality, and that I had the ability to captivate people with my words and stories. And why not get out there on my soapbox, no matter how novice I felt that I was, get out there and talk about the journey while you're going through it. They said that was one of the most amazing parts. And I was like, you're absolutely right. I was encouraged to take the natural gifts of confidence and the inquisition that I had to gather facts, and my experience in teaching and leadership to teach others who want to learn. And that this current period of excitement and expansion that I'm going through right now could be used to expand my own life, and it could be used to expand others. Now, you can imagine how hard it is for a guy that was a cop for so many years, that was so guarded and withdrawn and worked off of intimidation and all this other, egotistical garbage, to rub elbows with some of the people, these spiritual rock stars that are out there right now in my circle. It's a huge stretch and expansion for me. I mean, there was so much resistance to it at first, because it was just, I felt like a beginner. I felt like I was completely out of my element, which is another big reason why I'm doing it. I made myself a promise this year that I was going to start living a life that was uncomfortable. I had a thing with heights, and I've been forcing myself to just get over those things. And now I really don't even think I have a thing with heights anymore. I told myself that I'm going to start doing things that I don't like to do, things that are outside of my comfort zone. I was someone who absolutely hated getting up and talking in front of people at one point. And now in my political role, I'm up in front of an entire town. I'm on TV every other week. In my leadership roles where I run entire departments, of course, you have to be front and center on all sorts of different things. I vowed to make a shift to the uncomfortable things, because I know that is where the most growth lies, in that discomfort. Kind of like when you go to the gym, the exercise you hate to do the most is probably the one you need to do the most. In just a few days, I'm expanding to a whole new, very uncomfortable level. And I guess you can see that as a little bit of a pain, I guess. But that pain's like, the muscles burning, like when you go do a workout. I'm taking a huge leap out of my comfort zone, and I'm traveling to Los Angeles to stay for a week with one of my biggest mentors, Brandon Beecham from the Positive Head podcast. He is definitely one of my biggest life heroes, and he's had a massively successful podcasting career so far in the last 4 or 5 years. And now he has an offspin of his epic consciousness enhancing programming, and he's actually started a TV show called Optimistic. And he's rented out this huge mansion in Venice Beach, California, and has put together an epic crew of magic makers in this place to help elevate visitors for a week-long retreat. They do all sorts of stuff like meditation and one-on-one workshops and yoga and all sorts of like vegan meals and energy healing. All these things to help elevate people and help them get over life traumas, if that's what they're looking for. And I figured that was something that I could really get over a couple of different things. A lot of fear of judgments and a lot of the PTSD stuff. I mean, I still have things that creep in from time to time. So I figured, why not? Why not go out there and meet someone that I would absolutely love, one of the top people in my life that I would love to meet. Why not? Him and I have had numerous conversations and talked on the phone and video chat and stuff over the last year, and he's really become one of my biggest mentors. So taking the trip to California is a huge stretch for me. I mean, a big part of me is shifting from a life that I used to live into this one that involves these kinds of decisions of getting out there and flying across the country. It's a huge, expensive trip. I have a family at home to take care of, and I have a job that's very demanding right now. It's really hard to think about leaving it for a week. But that's currently another reason why I need to go. I've always sacrificed my own personal well-being for jobs and careers. So this is something I know I need to grow in, and it's a huge decision. It's a huge push. But basically, if I choose the perspective that I wanted to look at all the reasons why I shouldn't go, I can make a list of 1,000 things. But instead, I've made a list of 1,000 things that are encouraging me to go, reasons why I need to be there. Because I know that my biggest potential for growth means going to LA and going through this experience and spending a week with my mentor and having the chance to meet new and amazing like-minded people. these people that are knowledgeable in all of the stuff that I've become so fascinated and passionate about, why wouldn't I go? I mean, like I said, I could say because of work, I could say because of money, I could say because of my wife. Like right now, she's not feeling that great, and she's been going through a few health things, and I've thrown it out there that maybe I shouldn't go on this trip, and she has just been overly supportive, I think, saying that she won't take no for an answer. She won't let me stay home. But like I said, there's a million reasons why we can come up with excuses for or against something that we want to do. It just matters the perspective that we want to choose. If we want to choose a perspective of reasons to do something rather than excuses not to do something, we'll find ourselves doing so much more in our lives than we've ever done before. Now, your decisions don't have to be as drastic as something like what I'm planning to do, or even starting a podcast. I mean, maybe there's a seminar that you want to go to. Maybe there's someone who you think is an extremely interesting person that you want to meet in person or hear them talk live. Maybe there's a place that you want to go but you've never been there, or something you haven't done. Whatever it is, whatever reason. My guess maybe it's a stretch that you haven't been willing to take before. If it's something that you want to do but you haven't done it, there's some reason, there's something you're telling yourself why you shouldn't do it. But if it's something that you want to do, a version of yourself wants you to do it. There's some aspect of your being that wants you to do this, that wants you to incorporate this into your life. But that little voice, that little ego, that little thing that you need to learn how to silence is giving you reasons how it won't fit into your life. That puzzle piece won't fit into the puzzle of your life. But it will never fit if you don't give it space. Whatever that thing might be. Maybe it's just getting a gym membership so you can get in better shape, but you've always been worried about what people might think of you when you go there because you don't really know what you're doing, or you think you're too out of shape. Well, some of the biggest gym rats don't know what they're doing either, and they've been there for decades. I mean, I've seen a lot of people who don't know what they're doing, but it's not about that. Maybe there's always something you wanted to do, like play a certain instrument or get up in front of everybody and make a fool of yourself doing karaoke, but you've always been afraid to. Most of the time, the reasons that we find, the reasons that we give to do something is because of fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of ridicule. I know this podcast, even for me, I'm still somewhat fearful of what people that I know in my personal life, in my former life, may think of it. I mean, even currently, that's partially the reason why I haven't promoted it a whole lot on my personal pages. I've given little breadcrumbs here and there, but most of the people that are listening right now are people I've never even met in person. So even for me, giving you this advice of just doing something and giving up the fear of it, I'm working through my own growth cycle in that area. We best teach what we need to learn. But I'm doing it in baby steps. The biggest thing first was creating the podcast, because now it gave me the platform for this growth. And then as I get better and make more connections, I'm sure my confidence not to care what other people think will grow. And it's just that expansion. I'm continuing to expand, and I'm focusing on that expansion. But for now, I'm expanding at a pace that's comfortable for me currently, but I'm just making sure that I'm constantly expanding. No matter what that pace is, even if it's slow, I'm still expanding. Do something yourself that's going to help you grow and expand, because the more space you take up in this world to shine your light, the more interesting of a story you get to put in that book of you as the author is going to make that book all the more worth reading in the end. And it doesn't matter so much how other people feel about that book. It matters how you feel about that book when you're done writing it. At the end of all this, are you satisfied with the story you created? Fill those pages up with something beautiful, no matter what it is. Trust me, if I can do these things that I'm doing now, the type of person who I used to be, and shifting everything that I am, going to the Mystic Manor in LA, which I haven't been on an airplane in 14 years, and going hang out with a bunch of people I've never met in a place I've never been, and doing a bunch of stuff that I've never done before, and spend more money on myself than I've ever spent in my entire life, then you should be motivated to get out there and do whatever it is that you've been wanting to do. Don't let anything stop you. So I'm going to wrap this one up, everybody, and get ready for my trip here. I've got a lot of stuff I've got to prepare mentally as well. And I'm going to leave you with a song by Soul Rising, and this one is the title track off of his newest album called Dreamer, and the song is called Dreamer. Until next time, keep living, everybody. Thanks for listening.